You've heard me say before that Voltaire said what? Voltaire said, do not judge a man by his answers. You judge him by his questions. I found something else he said early this morning. I'm going to read it to you. He said, he was listening to a gentleman, and he said, he must be very ignorant, for he answers every question he is asked. I want you to think about that. You see, because so often we talked about when our brain says, well, I know that. Every time you have an answer, right? I know that. Your brain shuts off and you're not open to learning anything new. And as a coach, the power of curiosity is incredible, right? I know that in one of the triads that I coached in one of our first weeks, the challenge was the person who was the coach was jumping into solution really quickly, jumping into solution. And that's why we want to stay in questions. Albert Einstein said that if I had 1 hour and my life depended on it to come up with the answer, somebody needs to mute, please. I would spend 55 minutes figuring out the right question, because once I have the right question, I can get the answer easily. That's how powerful the questions are. He also said the important thing is to not stop questioning, because curiosity has its own reason for existing. Raise your hand if you think every question has an answer. You can do it like this. Just raise your hand if you think every question has an answer. Okay. It's easy to think that. Every question doesn't necessarily have an answer, but every answer had a question. Think about that. Every answer had a question. And the quality of your life is determined by the quality of conversations that you have. And the quality of conversations that you have is determined by the quality of questions that you ask. There she is, Miss Katie. So we're going to be talking about reframe along with empowering questions today. What is a reframe? A reframe allows you to see something in a different perspective and open you up to limitless possibilities you've never even considered. That's a writer downer. It isn't just about changing your attitude towards something. It's about giving you a different perspective and then opening to opportunities that are limitless that you've never even considered. I said this to someone the other day, and she said, you need to copyright that. So what did I do? I called my VA. How do I copyright this, right? But here's what I said, and I really want you to think about it. Faith and fear are very similar. They both ask you to believe in something you can't see and in something that hasn't happened yet. So what if your fear was really just faith turned in the wrong direction? Talk about a reframe, right? Think about that with your clients. Think about that when you work with your own coach. We all have fears that pop up, don't we? What if we could quickly reframe that and say, what if I considered this is really just faith? What one thing can I do to turn it in a different direction? When we use the CLEAR method, the first thing is contract, right? And we're going to use empowering questions to help us in that contract. The empowering questions also help us reframe what our client is doing. So I'd like someone to raise their hand. Everybody knows what the first C is in contract, right? It says, this is where you're going to have a conversation about how the coach and the client will work together in that session, what the client would like to get out of it. So who's willing to give me an empowering question that you can use in the contract stage of your coaching? Oh my goodness, everybody's sleeping today. Come on, I'm waiting for a hand to go up. Christina, unmute yourself, please, ma'am. And thank you for volunteering.
How do you see yourself in 3 to 6 months? Or how do you see yourself with using this program? How is this going to benefit you? If I could make, I've been using Aaron's, if I can wave a magic wand, what do you see yourself doing in a year or 2 years?
Thank you. That's a great stab at it, and you almost got it. Remember, they're going to be No, that's hang in there with me.
Yeah, no.
That's how we're going to practice, right? The best way to learn is to volunteer and practice, right? So we said there was really kind of 4 caveats around empowering questions, right? They're specific. They're time bound. If you hadn't written these down, you want to write these down. You cannot be attached to the outcome. And it's not your job to figure out the answer. Remember, the answer is outside of your jar. If it was in your jar, you would already have it. So, Christina, when you were crafting those questions, I would encourage you to ask the client, what one thing, right? What one thing would be of greatest value to you in your work with me? And if you want to preface it with the word if, the intro phrase like Aaron did, that's fine. If I were to if you were to wave a magic wand, but you still want to get specific, what one thing? I like the way you said in 3 months or in 1 year. And then as you break down the challenges of your client, you'll get them more specific. We're going to talk about that later on because we're going to talk about the action piece of it, right? How to get them quickly into effective action. And one of the things that we're going to tie in today that we haven't talked about before is using the art of celebration from a neuro-linguistic programming perspective and how powerful that can be in helping your clients achieve their goals. Would somebody else like to take a stab at it? You're in the contract phase. Oh man, I'm gonna have to offer prizes or something. All right, eventually. Oh, there we go. Bellin, please unmute.
I would ask them about their goals. What one goal would be the most important that you're trying to reach at this stage in your life?
Yes, very good. Thank you. I appreciate that. So one of the things when you're helping your clients and you want to help them craft empowering questions around their greatest challenge, you want to make sure that their greatest challenge has been stated for them as a powerful statement. Here's a writer downer for you. A powerful statement always has embedded presuppositions, always. So for example, if your client said to you, I want to be more healthy, or I want to be healthy, what does that presuppose? Somebody unmute. What does it presuppose if I said to you, I want to be healthy? Marco. I thought you raised your hand.
I actually did by mistake, but that's okay. Well, it entails that they're not healthy or they're not happy with their health, right? They don't see themselves as being healthy.
Exactly. So to make it into a powerful statement, you would help them say, you could start with, I want to be more healthy. To make it really powerful, you would say, I want to be even more healthy today. You're claiming that health already, right? It kind of ties in with what Marco teaches us about the frequencies and drawing things in. You're going to claim that you already are. It's biblical, right? God says, call things that aren't as though they are. You must believe and then you see. Once you help your client craft that empowered statement, then you can help them craft the empowering questions around that they can use on a daily basis. So for example, if that was our empowered statement, I want to be even more healthy today. One of the questions I could ask myself is, what one thing, as opposed to thing, you could even make it more specific, what one fruit or vegetable that I don't currently eat could I add to my diet that I would thoroughly enjoy while I'm doing it today? Does that make sense? I wish everybody was on camera today. Man, miss those smiling faces. Dadgummit. All right. So I want someone to come off mute, please, and craft me and think of a challenge you've had with a client. Perhaps it's a challenge that you're having right now. And how would you craft an empowered statement first for that challenge? And then let's craft some empowering questions around that challenge for you. You know, if nobody raises their hand. Oh, there, Lacey. Come on, Lacey. Girl, I thought you were too sick. This is awesome.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Right now, I'm helping my clients design a package, their services that they offer. And my question to them is, what is the one thing that you love to do with your clients? Because if you love to do it, it's not going to feel like work.
Exactly. So if you were going to help them, if they're challenged in that, how would you craft the empowered statement first?
Would it be, what is the one thing that we can do today to figure out what service you want to offer right now? That's
the empowered question. That's a great empowered question behind the statement. So from a statement perspective, if I'm having that challenge, I can't figure out what I want my services to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
My statement is, well, one of the statements you could say is, I am excitedly creating a super powerful blah, blah, blah that does blah, 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 right?
Right.
Because then you tie in the result as well. Does that make sense to everybody? Yes.
Yes.
So you craft the empowered statement. You did a great job with the question behind it. But once they have that statement and you help them craft it, they can continue to craft empowering statements around that as well as things go along.
Okay.
Perhaps they come up with 2 or 3 things and you're trying to help them narrow it down to one. They could then ask themselves the question, well, what one thing would have me choose this one and be super excited about it? Or they could look at another one. How can I change this program so that it not only meets the needs of my clients, but I'm excited while I'm doing it?
I love that. I love that. Because it's all about serving. So if we do that way, what can we do to meet the needs of all of our clients and still stay true to ourselves?
Yes, exactly. Because so often coaches will go and craft a program without really knowing what their avatar, if you will, their ideal client wants. And then they wonder why it doesn't sell.
Right.
Because they didn't ask the questions up front. I have a client right now and I'm having her put a post in Facebook asking a different question. She's just polling people, right? There's no need to spend a lot of time crafting this webinar or this masterclass if nobody wants it. And oftentimes we've all been guilty as coaches, right? Oh, I know this is going to help my client. Well, if they don't want it, it isn't going to help them, right? So thank you for that, Lacey. I appreciate that. Was a really good one. Does anybody else want to try one before we move on? So I had a client and I used to have an office, and I want you to think about this. We said an empowering question does what? It never starts with what? Someone just mouthed why. Thank you, Yogesh. It never starts with why. So I had a client, and the first time she came to see me, thank you for putting that in, Lacey, she was on time. Then she was a little late. Then she was later. And by the 4th time, it was ridiculous. Now, I'm a shake your hand, give you a hug kind of girl. So she came in, I gave her a big hug, and I sat her down. I said, get out your pen and paper. I said, we're not going to let this coaching opportunity pass by. And she kind of looks at me kind of funny because we don't typically jump in like that. And I said, I want you to write this down. How I do anything is how I do everything. Now, she's a human being. And most of us, when we get to a meeting late, we want to do what? We want to tell a defensive story about why we're late. I didn't ask her why she was late. And when she started to tell me a story, I said, well, I don't need a story because this is not about you being late. And I want you to really listen to how I crafted my question to her. She said, if it's not about me being late, what's it about? And I said, it's about where else in your life are you not showing up for you? And she was like, what? I said, look, you pay me in advance for my time. I'm not giving you any money back, and I'm not giving you extra time because I have a schedule of clients that I keep. I said, write it down. And she looks at me, she goes, is that my homework for the week? I'm like, honey, that's your homework ad nauseum. I want it on your dashboard. I want it on your shower. I want it on your refrigerator, 6 to 8 times a day, out loud. And remember, don't stop to try and figure it out. There we were, I don't know, 6, 8, maybe even 10 weeks later in the program. And all of a sudden she sits up one day and her eyes were really big. And I said, what's up? And she said, that's another place I'm not showing up for me. And she began to start having awarenesses of where she was self-sabotaging. She was completely oblivious to them before. And when she was able to do that, then we were able to replace those habits with good leadership skills and habits. And she doubled her income in her business in 6 months. How many of us, our first thought would have been, well, why are you late all the time? Right? Why is not going to get you the answer that you want, and it's not going to help your client, right, have the breakthrough that they're looking for. Does that make sense? Great. I'll give you another quick client story. We're going to talk about the power of choice. When you use these questions, you're helping your clients understand that they're choosing. Only when we own that we're choosing can we then make a different choice. So I had a guy, Katie says, wow, makes a lot of sense. Love that. Exactly. Thank you. So I had a guy, great guy, Haitian guy, and he comes in to see me one January and mad as hell. Guy was mad. He pissed off. So I sat there for 6 minutes like this, and he was stand up, sit down, F-bomb the wife and her business, F-bomb the guys at his body shop. He was mad, right? F-bomb the kids in the budget. It was like, woo. And I just calmly sat there and said, well, Reggie, just say I choose. This literally went on for 6 minutes. Then he was so livid because I was so calm and I wasn't joining him in his tantrum. He was, okay, Carol. The veins were sticking out in his neck, right? I choose. And I stood up and I gave him a high five. And I said, awesome, sit down. Now that you own your choosing, you can choose differently going forward. And I gave him empowering questions in each one of those areas as part of his homework. He came back to see me 2 weeks later. It was the first time he'd ever been dressed in business clothes. I mean, he went from being this tyrant to dressing professionally, handing me a piece of paper. Here's the budget for my kids and the cell phones and the whatever. Here's the thing for my wife. Here's the thing for my company. Had a completely different turnaround, right? Because he owned that he was choosing, and you can use empowering questions to do that. We talked a couple of weeks ago, for those of you who were at the Friday session, and I got a lot of feedback later on that this was really powerful. That's why I'm including it again here today. We're going to talk about 3 perceptual positions. Very important. 3 perceptual positions. The first one is called the associated position. This is the one where most people spend their time, right? They're in their frame. They're in their jar, as I call it, and all they can see is what's in their jar. People who have addictions, people who are challenged by depression, right? They're always in this position. When you're attached to the outcome, it presupposes fear. That's why I started this whole thing with faith and fear, right? We're going to tie this all together. When you're attached to the outcome, it presupposes fear. What if it doesn't turn out like I want it to? What if it doesn't look like I want it to? What if I have to do something hard when it shows up? What if I don't like it, but it really is the answer? Your brain can go to all these negative places to hold you in your frame. That's why empowering questions not only help you reframe, they help you get out of their frame. When you're in that frame, you're closed off the possibilities that are right in front of your face. You can't see them. That's why empowering questions open the door to possibilities. The second position is that of observation. You're able to see it through your client's eyes and hear it and maybe feel it through their eyes or from another person. But where you really want to get to is third position. Third position, write this down, is disassociated. As a coach, the more time you can spend in the disassociated position, the better it is for you and the better it is for your client. This makes you a neutral observer. How many of you have ever heard the statement, don't ever work with a therapist who doesn't have their own therapist, right? Exactly. Because you want them doing their work with their therapist. You don't want them doing their work through you. It's the same thing with coaching. I make sure my coach, whoever I hire has a coach, because they can't see they're in their jar too, right? So when you're in this neutral third person position, disassociated, what does disassociated mean? Not attached to the outcome. When you're not attached to the outcome, you're not bringing your stuff, whatever it is, your emotions, your experiences, into the conversation with the client. Does this make sense? Who's willing to say that they spend a lot of time in the third position effectively? Christina? Awesome. Come off, Christina, and tell us a little bit about how you're doing that with your clients. This is really important.
Well, I try that as much as possible, actually, because it helps. It helps a lot because you're seeing the whole broad picture. I do it a lot of times after meditating. I
Okay.
can see the whole picture. That's how I see it, or I'll get a download after a meditation where I can see the bigger picture that way. That's how I usually do it. But these questions are helping as well. That's how I've always done it in the past, is through a lot of meditation and stuff like that, because I just kind of put myself out
Okay.
of it all.
Don't mute yourself yet. Are you willing to play just a second for a little bit?
Okay.
So if you're in a coaching situation and your client happens to say or do something that triggers something in you,
Okay.
you feel it, right? You might feel the emotion come up.
Yeah.
What one thing can you do to get back to the neutral, disassociated position? Because as soon as your emotions get involved, you're no longer in that position. And we have to be aware of this, right?
I usually, the first thing I do is I breathe, or
Okay,
I
good.
ground myself. I ground myself. And then I try and yeah, that's usually the first thing I do, is I breathe and I ground myself. And then and that usually kind of like takes me a step back.
Okay.
And then as I do that, I even have crystals that on my desk that help me ground. If I need to, I'll grab one. But after I do that, it usually kind of like gives me a second, and then I take a little bit, assess. Then I usually get to that second position where I start to understand where they're coming from.
Okay.
And I usually get that, a download of where their feelings are coming from, of, what's going on. And I feel like, okay, well, I need to take a little bit of time to see the whole thing.
What's an empowering question you could ask yourself to help you reframe when that trigger comes up for you? And I want everybody to be thinking about this, and I want somebody else to volunteer, because it's one thing for me to continue to give you empowering questions. It's another thing for you to be able to craft them. So think about what would be an empowering question. You would just ask in your own mind. You feel that feeling come up. You recognize where it is. You understand. You're aware enough. You're getting triggered. Think about
what is it that is triggering me, or
What one thing
is triggering me about this situation?
Let's make it more powerful. What one thing could I recognize right at this moment that can release me from this trigger?
Thank you. What one thing?
Yes.
I'm gonna write that down.
What one thing? I see Yogesh nodding his head. He liked that one, right?
What
one thing?
Okay.
I don't even know what I said. I say them just often.
Yeah. It is could release me.
What one thing could I recognize and release me from this trigger? That might I go back and listen to the replay. Oftentimes with my clients, I let them record, because these roll off my tongue and I don't always remember exactly what I said.
Yeah.
I got a lot of nods on that one. So one thing that I recognize and release to relieve me, not erase me from this trigger. Thank you. Who put that in? Lacey. Lacey said that was amazing. Yeah. So I want you to be able to use these empowering questions when you get in challenging situations. Relieve me from this trigger. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. I'd like for someone who hasn't spoken yet to volunteer. It's a great opportunity to practice. I really want to work on embedding this with you so that it's not just shelf knowledge. Marie, thank you.
I really need help with this, so I'm glad to do it.
So you're in a situation with a client, and they've said something that triggers you. What's another question you could come up with that would help you get back to the disassociated neutral position?
What one thing can I do to ground myself and not have this trigger me?
Okay, that's a good start. But remember, the subconscious doesn't hear the word not. So your subconscious just heard, I'm trigger me, right?
Mhm. Yes.
So that's an important word that we're taking out when we're making these declarations and these statements. Listen, 3 years ago, I said, I don't want to be on Facebook. I don't want to have a Facebook group. Now I've got 2 shows on Facebook plus a group, right? My subconscious never heard the word not. It's like, oh, that's what she wants. Let's go get it. So
I'm dealing with that.
do what?
I'm dealing with all that. So I want to release it. I'm on that mission to release all that.
Exactly. So write it down. Just remember the subconscious doesn't hear the word not. The subconscious is number one thing, and I'm going to call you Marco next, is to keep you safe, right? That's why it gives you fight or flight, and it's to take orders. So you have to be careful how you craft the orders that you're giving it.
I'm great at helping others, but it's me that I need to like get out of the way, because I mean, I'm a great hypnotherapist, been doing it for many years, so I understand the subconscious mind thing, but it's me.
It's because you're in your jar and you're committed. Yes. You're committed to your jar. That's why I would encourage you to hire a good coach that's outside of your jar, right? That can help you do the very thing you're getting your clients to do. How many of us, let's be honest, have ever gotten our clients to do something consistently and we're not doing it ourselves? And we have to ask ourselves, what one thing can I do to be as consistent as I'm getting my clients to be in this one area? Right. So that was a great start. And the other thing I would encourage you is to try and take the word need. You don't need this. You have everything. You have everything. Come from a place of abundance. Need comes from lack. And if you approach it like I need help, I would encourage you to approach it with, I am so good at blah, 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 and I'm excited that I'm getting even better. Right? Call things that aren't as though they are so that you can step into them. Thank you so much, Marie. Marco.
One thing I do, and I start doing it without realizing it, and I've been doing this for many, many, many years. It works great for me. Now, this is going to sound strange, you guys, but you have to understand my background, okay? What I do is whenever there's a possibility the situation gets hairy or perhaps pleasant, I pretend that there is another one of me. I pretend the conversation is 3 of us instead of than just 2. So I make an imaginary Marco next to me.
Okay.
That imaginary Marco is going to get all the crap, all the, the bad news that I don't want to handle. And I become unaffected. In other words, you talk nice to me, you're talking to this Marco, you're talking different to me, something I don't want to have nothing to do with it. You're talking to the other Marco. It does not affect me. In other words, I stay neutral, calm. Let me tell you a little quick story, which sometimes can get very, very, this is how well it works for me. One time, 20 years ago, my family doctor told me that they found hepatitis in my blood, hepatitis C, and the incurable one at the time. I got out of the office thinking, was he talking to me? He says, Marco, I want you to see the specialist because we need to do something about this. The hepatitis, I had got it in an accident when I was a little kid. I had an accident in a blood transfusion. He says, we need to do something about it. So he got me talking to a specialist. A specialist did the exams again, and he again confirmed, yes, Marco, you have hepatitis C. It's incurable at the time. We're going to have to manage it, but I'm telling you, it's bad news. Again, I pretended there was another Marco next to me. And I said, okay. He gave me the prescription. I was supposed to stop at the pharmacy to pick up the medicinals. I got in my car and I said, so I have no symptoms. They can even understand why I have no symptoms. It's been with me 20 years, apparently. So I have a choice here. Either I go with what they just told me and become sick of hepatitis, because now I'm going to own it, or pretend that we're talking about my friend Marco here. I got nothing to do with it. And I pretend that this day never even happened. I took the prescription by chance, of course. There was a garbage can by my car. I put it in a garbage can, forgot all about it. That day never existed for me. Never existed. Did nothing at all. 5 years later, I see my doctor in a furniture store. Marco, has your hepatitis? So, doctor, to be honest, I never did anything about it. What are you talking about? What? I mean, you're really, really sick, Marco. I says, I don't feel sick. Come in my office right away. He checks my blood. There's something wrong with your blood. It says something ain't right. Come back tomorrow. Check my blood again. Hepatitis is gone. Gone. But this is not the strangest part. 10 years later, another doctor, I told him about this incident. Well, Marco says it's easy to find out because it says anytime you have any type of virus, the antibodies will stay with you for life. Regardless whether you took the medicinals or whatever you did, the antibodies will be with you for life. You check my blood, 0 antibodies. In other words, not only I did not get sick, I didn't even develop the antibodies, which means I refuse to own that sickness, but not out of fear, you guys, because this is the thing we need to understand here. If you fear something, you're going to get it. I completely detached from it, and I gave it to my other friend, Marco. I said, I want nothing to do with it. I walked away. Still today, the 2 doctors don't know what happened. So this is the power of your mind. Thank you.
That's awesome. And it's a great example of how, as coaches, we can shield ourselves sometimes, right, from the negative energy that our
Absolutely.
clients. Honestly, I've never heard that. I think it's brilliant. I love it. Thank
It
you.
works for me.
I'm going to try it. Thank you so
you.
much. All right. I've got some things here in the chat that I don't want to miss real quick. Grace put in, what one thing can I do right now to shift my focus from me to the client? Excellent. Excellent. When our focus gets on us, what letter is in the middle of the word anxious and in the middle of the word anxiety? What letter's in the middle? Come on, somebody put it in the chat. What letter's in the middle? Lacey. Lacey's so good. Lacey's sick, and look at her. Go, Lacey. The letter I. When we're focused on I and on us, that's where the anxiety and the anxiousness comes in. So whether you're in the coaching session or just in life, this is a life thing, and you feel that anxiety come up, do something to focus on somebody else. Go help somebody else. Trust me, it sounds simple. Like Marco's thing sounds simple to me, but I've never thought of it before, right? It's awesome. But it works. So I have another question here. Can you give us a practical example to help us see an example of such triggers? Yes. So for example, what if a client started berating you and telling you that you're not helping, you're not any good, you're not helping them? Do you think a little bit of emotion might come up? Because we're human beings. The first thing we want to do is defend our position, right? And so then we're going to get triggered. The thing is, all of our triggers are already inside of us. Most of them are from childhood, right? And just as a side note, in a personal situation, one of the things I help my clients do, I have one client who's adopted this so well, it actually blows my mind just to watch her. But she used to really have a lot of trouble dealing with anxiety. And I helped her understand that when the body feels fear or excitement, it produces the same chemicals and hormones. So what she does now, she does what Christina said first. When she feels that come up, she takes a deep breath. Then she immediately goes into gratitude. This is powerful work. She goes into gratitude for the trigger. She feels where it is in her body, sends it some love, and then asks the question, what one thing can I heal in me to completely release this trigger? Because as we do the work on our triggers, guess what? Those triggers will eventually go away. Maybe it's a month, maybe it's a year, maybe it's a really deep one from your child and it's 10 years, but one day somebody's going to do that exact same thing. You're going to be like, not be triggered at all. Stop owning crap. Grace says, stop owning crap. There you go. Grace says, Lacey's taking her health back. Absolutely awesome. Here's another thing that we've talked about. This is a definite writer downer. The words always and never put you in a hypnotic state. They put you in a hypnotic state. And how many of us are guilty? And how many times do we listen to our clients? Oh, yeah, he always does that. Or this always happens to me. Let's think about empowering questions that we can ask them to get out of that state. Who was with me 2 weeks ago? I gave you a good one. Come on. Yogesh, do you remember? Did you write it down? It was on the Friday. Yogesh says no. That's okay. Right? Think about if you're in the third position angle of observation, and they're saying always, right? The first thing I do to my clients, and I say, always? They go, yeah, always. And I'm like, I'm curious, always? And they go, yeah, always. And I say, okay. And then I ask this question: what one time in your life was this not true for you? And guess what? Every time they come up with it, oh, well, think about it. They're in this, Grace is smiling. They're in this hypnotic state. And we convince ourselves, right, that it's always or never, but it isn't. And using these questions can really help the client get out of that jar, get out of that frame. Make sense? But we have to remember what angle that we're perceiving that from. Let's talk a little bit about, and I'm watching the time because I want us to have a little bit more interaction before we take our break at the top of the hour, and then we're going to do some extra work and go into triads. We're going to talk about internal leadership, how we can reframe our internal leadership. So I found a quote early this morning that I've never heard. Who knows who Peyton Manning is? Does everybody know who Peyton Manning is? Famous football quarterback, Hall of Famer. His father was Archie Manning from LSU, my alma mater. His brother, Eli Manning, is a quarterback. Listen, they're football quarterbacks in the family. And he said this: I love being coached. I get angry when I'm not coached. I ask a lot of questions, and I certainly appreciate any insight and feedback. I think if you ever stop listening to coaching or stop asking questions, you probably need to be doing something else. Think about that just for a second. Powerful, powerful statement. Have you ever been working with your coach and you were in resistance to doing something? Right? You didn't want to, right? You didn't want the coaching. You weren't open. And oftentimes, believe it or not, I'm going to tie it back, something in you got triggered. It happened to me with my coach probably about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And I was just like, you're really pissing me off now. And he's like, great, Carol. Tell me what's coming up underneath that. Remember, because anger is a secondary emotion. It's just a subset of fear. It's a cover up. And I had to sit and really think about that. And I was like, I was sad. See, I wasn't really angry. I was sad and I was disappointed because what he was pointing out to me that I needed to work on, there's that need word, that I could work on to improve, was something I thought I had conquered, right? I thought I was done with that, right? Same devil, new level. Have we talked about that in here? That's a powerful thing. Oftentimes we say what? We say, new level, new devil. It's not. If you really looked at the things that challenge you and trigger you, it's the same devil. You're just trying to go at a problem when you're 40 or 50 years old with the same technique you used when you're 15. It's the same devil, just at a new level. And that happens when we're peeling back the onion. So we have to be aware that, I'm totally off topic now, but we'll come back. We have to be aware, right? And these empowering questions can help us do that. Where in my past has that triggered me before? Think about it. What one thing can I do differently this time to have a better response instead of a reaction? Okay, we'll get back to listening to being internal leadership. So I'm going to ask somebody to unmute. I'm going to give you one. I'm going to remind you that I had you write down several of them a couple of weeks ago. Let's embed some learning. So from an internal leadership perspective, an empowering question you could ask yourself on a daily basis is, who am I being behind closed doors today when nobody's watching. That's a writer downer. It's how we can keep ourselves in check. We're in our jar. We all have habits, sometimes that we're even unaware of. I have a client, oh my God, first thing in the morning, she doesn't even get out of bed and she'll play games for 3 hours and wonder why her business isn't growing. She's just gotten into such a habit. We have to be able to change those habits. Somebody who hasn't spoken, come on. I need a volunteer. I want to volunteer. I don't need a volunteer because I can give you all kinds of questions.
I want to volunteer.
Great, Bellen. Thank you so much. So think of a question that you could ask yourself. This is internal leadership you're working on. This is not about your client. This is about you. What's a question you could ask yourself on a daily basis to up-level your leadership?
I would ask myself, what one thing am I doing to sabotage my progress as far as coaching concerned? And what could I do today to change that?
Okay. What one thing I could do today? Let's go back to the first one. I want you to repeat it for me one more time. Can you say it again?
If I can remember how I said it.
That's okay.
What one thing am I doing to sabotage my progress in my coaching? And what could I do to make that change?
Instead of focusing on
the negative
and trying to figure out what you're doing, because that draws more to you, I would say, what one thing that I'm not aware of, right?
Okay.
That if I were to become aware, would eliminate self-sabotage in that area.
So it's about awareness. Okay.
Yes. You're trying to bring in things that are outside of your jar. Did that question make sense? Christina, you're nodding. Does that question make sense to you? It did, right?
Okay.
And you could also, what one thing could I stop doing today? Think about it. It might be something that you're not aware that you're doing. What one thing could I stop doing today that will eliminate or eradicate, if you want a more powerful word, self-sabotage in that area? And then whatever the area is you're focusing on, you'll already know which one that is.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. That's great. Thank
you. Did that help you?
Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for volunteering. I want one more, please. Come on, Stephanie, you can do this.
All right. What one thing can I do today to help? What would be one thing today that I can do to help me feel more productive? Help me, within my time of trying to launch a business.
Hey, let's reframe this a little bit, right? Because it's not about feeling productive. Let's take the feelings out of it, right? You either are or you're not, right? So if your challenge is that your challenge, productivity?
I'm very productive, but I have so many things in the air that I'm having a hard time on what to focus on.
Okay. Then let's frame our question around that. Does that sound good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So tell me one of the things you're trying to focus on.
So life certification.
Okay.
Trying to create a program, a quantum manifestation program. I have about 5 of them, so I don't know if you just want those two, but
that's good. So your challenge is around, you have a lot of programs that you're trying to put together and your brain's kind of pinging off of each one of them.
Yes.
Okay, great. I don't believe in balance. Okay. I believe in priorities. So I would encourage you, let's just say you've got 5 programs and you're not willing to put any of them aside. You get to make the decision that Monday, my priority is this program. What 3 things, remember, we're going to talk about this a little later on. They're going to be bite-sized, digestible, doable things. What 3 things can I do today to move me forward in this goal? You do them. We're going to talk about, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but I'm going to give you a couple of things to do after you do them. And then once you've accomplished those three, then let's say it's only 12 o'clock, midday. What's one more thing I can do today to get me closer to this goal? The other thing you could do, it's a hexagonal, it's inexpensive. Is it hexagonal, whatever the word is. It looks like that thing on Amazon, and it's a timer. Set the timer I'm focusing on this thing for 15 minutes. Close your email, move your phone away. And at the end of that 15 minutes, if you haven't quite accomplished the thing you wanted to accomplish, set it for 15 more. And that's my focus. Sometimes we just need that outside direction. So if you have 5 programs, I would encourage you, if you listen to the people who have multiple streams of income, they will tell you, you get one up and running first, have it bring in steady income, and then you work on your second. Also, what happens when we stay in this state of, I have so many things to do and I'm not accomplishing anything, it's a form of self-sabotage. Because then we don't have to finish anything. So we don't have to own the fact that it's finished and we don't like it, or it's finished and it didn't work, or it didn't work as good as I wanted it to.
Yeah.
And that can keep us in, and that can come from a position of fear of success. And you're laughing and shaking your head. Did I hit the nail on the head?
Yes. Yes, you did.
Awesome. I'm going to give you a tool. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on in the program. And it's a tool that I haven't talked to any of you about before that allows you to get good at listening to you. Fair enough? Thank you. Thank you for sharing, Marco.
The way I do it is I have several things going at the same time, but if I try and bring all of them forward at the same time, it's impossible. So I dedicate one day to just one thing, period, nothing else. That day I'm fully focused on whatever it is. Then Tuesday I'm focused on whatever it is. And then on that day I do nothing else. And make sure you leave lots of time for yourself to recharge your batteries and have fun with whatever it is. Don't just work. In other words.
Great advice.
That's the way I do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Here's another question I'm going to give you from internal leadership perspective. I want you to write this down. And this could actually help you, Stephanie, as well. What is the highest and best use of my time right now? Think about how many times we allow ourselves to get distracted during the day. You're not on Facebook for business. You're on Facebook because you're, scrolling and trolling. Well, what is the highest and best use of my time right now? It's not that you're in judgment about being on Facebook or on Instagram, but is that the best use of your time right now? And I've often been known to say that discipline is doing what's best to do right now for what you ultimately want, not for just what you want in the moment. All right, let's go back to our example of being healthy. I ultimately want to be the epitome of health and, weigh 150 pounds or whatever your goal is. If that's what I really want, that's my ultimate goal, then I'm not going to eat that piece of cake. See, people lose their discipline. Oh, I just want this cake right now. How clear are your ultimate goals? And what are you willing to do to get to them? Yogesh is just grinning from ear to ear on that one. You like that cake, Yogesh? But think about that. Think about that, Stephanie. What is your end goal?
How do you resist tiramisu cake? There's no way. Can't resist.
But when you're looking at crafting those, right, you can ask yourself that. What is it that I ultimately want? Is this behavior going to get me what I ultimately want? Or is it just going to get me a feeling right now? Right? And as business owners, we don't make decisions based on feelings, right? Because feelings are fickle. Feelings come and they go. One of the steps in my 7 steps to an unstoppable business is how to become a professional athlete in your business, right? Athletes show up every day, no matter what they feel like. Doesn't matter. How consistently are we as entrepreneurs doing that in our business? Or I don't feel like getting out of bed today, or I don't feel like making cold calls, or whatever it is that you need to do, right? All right. I think this is going to be a good place to answer any questions. And then we're going to be up at the top of the hour and take our break before we go into the next section. So who has questions or anything that they want to share? Jackie, you're awfully quiet today.
I'm good.
Okay. Does anybody have anything?
I do.
Great.
I just want to, I am a positive person, but then of course, I'm just normal human being. I tend to think negative also, but I like to wonder if it's better to think more positive in asking empowered questions, even for myself or like in my business or whatever, than try to think negatively. Like I think I was thinking more negative when I was talking to you about what one thing am I doing wrong. Maybe I should start thinking what 3 things can I do that would move me forward, instead of thinking, okay, what am I doing wrong? Because I know in my subconscious mind, I'm thinking, okay, I know I should be doing this and I know I should be doing that, but maybe I could reframe it and think more positive. What things can I start doing instead of stop doing,
This is an awesome conversation. Thank you for sharing that. So Miss Grace Edibo, I'm going to answer your question that you asked me a couple of weeks ago to answer, right? Here's a writer downer, folks. Take the words should and shouldn't out of your vocabulary. Bellen, every time you do that to yourself, it's about judgment and blame. Judgment and blame. If you say, I should do this, and then you don't, well, then you're wrong. Or if you say, I shouldn't do that, but you choose to go do that, you just made yourself wrong, right? Stand in the power of choice. I chose to do that. It didn't get me the result I wanted, or it wasn't really what I ultimately wanted. I'm going to choose differently now. It puts you in a position of power all the time. Absolutely, you want to frame these in the positive. That's how they're powerful. And remember, what we focus on expands. If you're focused on what you're doing wrong, you're going to draw more judgment on yourself, more wrongness on yourself, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you. I think that's my whole answer. And because I like to think positive anyway, but so that's why I even caught myself like, oh, why did I say that? It was in a negative sense. So that's why my mind was saying, I shouldn't be thinking that way. I should be thinking more positive.
And see, you just judged yourself twice. I shouldn't, and I should.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
Listen, this is not going to be an easy word to take out of your vocabulary, but the more you can do it, the more powerful it is. Oftentimes when we're in fear of judgment by somebody else, it's the very thing we're judging ourselves for. And they're just a mirror for us. So when you can come from a place, and it also puts you in a place of greater self-acceptance because you're not judging yourself as wrong all the time.
So what words would you suggest to you instead of use should or shouldn't?
I get to. I have the opportunity to. I can. I will. I choose. I choose to have the most powerful, positive mindset today and every day. What if you started your day like that before you even got out of bed? And it puts you in a power of choice. We can't always control the thoughts that come in our heads,
right,
but we can control whether we choose to dwell on them and whether we choose to act on them. Does that make sense?
Yes, it's always about your mindset every day. What mindset are you going to have for that day? And that's
exactly
starting out in the right mindset will set you the day. So I think being positive is better than being negative. Always.
Always. Right. So I'm going to call on you, Katie, just a quick second. Marie, I see you nodding your head, right? So when that comes up for you, Marie, I need to. No, I get to. I want to. I choose to. I have the opportunity to. I am so blessed that I have the choice to. All of those put you coming from a place of abundance and not lack. Does that help? Great. Okay, Miss Katie, let's hear from the Shades lady.
I'm just loving this. Carol, I woke up this morning and I listened to your coaching last week. It was when you taught last, I guess that was 2 weeks ago. So that's how I started my day after I did my morning ritual. And so I was in that mindset, but what I've taken 10 pages of notes. My son's driving the car. I just wanted to pipe in here and say that you are nailing it. This is exactly what everybody is ready to receive on this day. And it's so good for us because what are we? We're the mouthpieces. We're talking to people. We are inspiring people and leading people to their own answers.
Yes.
And what better way to do that than to discover how we can show up better ourselves? And that's what I wanted to respond on is you've touched on it a couple of times. The last time you touched on it a couple of times, but it's so important that as the pro athlete in our business, that we know that we are already there in that in process. We won't, there is no there. We know that there's no getting there. And then it's, I'm here today. These are the gifts, talent, strengths. This is the knowledge, the power, and higher understanding that I have. And let me ask these empowering questions to open the gateway for people's higher understanding so they too can get out of their way and create abundance. What you're saying is so on point with everything, all the downloads that I've been getting while I was quiet, offline in my own oneness. I wrote so much of the same belief and methodology down because this is how we move forward in adversity and in positivity. And it is a choice. And I love how much you focus on saying, I choose. And taking radical responsibility for what you're choosing, what you're doing behind closed door when nobody is watching. Would you hire yourself today? Probably not. Well, it just depends. Are you showing up for yourself first? And then you're ready to give goodness to people? Are you showing up broken, not doing the work, not having a great coach, not taking action and expecting them to pay for that? No way. So I just wanted to come in here and say you're on point. We all have things going on in our life, but what matters is the way that you're thinking, the way you're being, the way that you are communicating back to people who are ready to receive forward movement. No more blocks.
Awesome.
Thank you. You're rocking.
You're welcome. And thank you so much for sharing. And think about that, folks. The first step to being a professional athlete in your business is showing up every day, no matter what you feel like. The second step is you have to be willing to work sometimes when others are resting. And that's not about being a workaholic. Quick story. Y'all don't know this whole story about me, but I started playing tennis very late at 15 and very fortunate, ended up getting a tennis scholarship. I'm at LSU. I'm playing number 6. I'm ecstatic just to be playing number 6 because the top 6 get to play singles, and they'd all been playing since they were 5 years old. We get to the end of our first year, and the other girls on the team took the summer off. And I went and got on the 21 and under tour, and I worked all summer. Came back in August for tryouts, same girls on the team, except we had one new freshman. And I moved up from playing number 6 to playing number 2. Think about it. What are you willing to do when everybody else is resting? It's something I talk to my clients about when people want to rest between Thanksgiving and Christmas. Well, why aren't you having a Black Friday sale in your business? Now more than ever, what could you creatively do for Black Friday? And a quick third step, and then we'll go to break, is that as a professional athlete in your business, you must be willing to do the same thing over and over and over. When I was at LSU playing tennis, and at the end of some practices, and the coach would assign me to do this thing with this other person, listen, I was in dread. I knew I was going to be there till the sun went down. And what we had to do, I don't know if you know a tennis court, but there's a tennis court and the court has alleys. And this is after a 2.5, 3 hour practice. One of us was at one end and one was at the other. So one person was hitting a forehand, one person was hitting a backhand. And we had to hit it in the alley 100 times in a row before we could quit. 100 times in a row. You talk about working on mindset when you know that other person ain't ever going to get it done, right? But you have to be willing to do the same thing over and over and over with a good attitude. All right. Who's ready to get some questions and reframing on our listening for external leadership. Listening for external leadership. I'm going to give you a question to start. Then we're going to open it back up. We're going to get some practice in. Who's benefiting from the practice? From watching other people practice, and then we're able to reframe it, right, and make it more powerful. So thank you to all those that are volunteering, because I think it really, really helps everybody. And you know that you're not alone. It's not necessarily easy to craft these on the fly. And it's really not easy to craft them when your emotions come up. So I'm glad we really had an opportunity to address that as well. So when you're listening for external leadership and you're with a client, right? I'm going to give you a question, empowering question. And I forgot to write down what step we're on in Gabby's clear thing. We're on one of the steps, right? So listening for external leadership. So if you're looking at the client and you want them to know that you've really been listening to them, here's one question you could say to them. What is the most important thing? What is the most important thing to remember today? If the client says, I don't know, well, then we got to look at how that session went, right? How many of you know that I don't know is just a defense mechanism? Come on, it's just a defense mechanism. What I want you to do, if a client does that to you and says, well, I don't know, I want you to change the tone of your voice, make it a little lilty and go, okay, you don't know, but if you did know, what would you say? When you make it a game, you would be amazed. I had one lady who told me, I don't know 6 times in a row. And I finally just said, oh, okay, I'm with you. But if you did know, what would you say? She gave me 9 things after that. All of a sudden it was a game. If I did know, in other words, it takes the accountability off. It takes the pressure off. It takes the, they're just afraid to say. They know what it is. So it's just a defense mechanism, right? So if you really want to show that you've understood the other person, this question will help them summarize with you. And they'll know that they've been heard. And that's really important in your external leadership, right? Not only does it show them that, but it signals to them that you do want to remember. It gives them that signal. All right, Stephanie, I see that you're already unmuted. You can be our first.
Oh, sorry.
No, don't apologize. Don't apologize. This is awesome. I'm going to call on somebody else in a minute who hadn't. So think of a question. You're in a session with the client, right? You're listening for external leadership. You want to know that you've shown your leadership in the session. What's another question that you could ask? This is important because often, I want to bring this up because often what we do is we try to jump into solutions, right? We talked about that in one of the triads I did. One of the person in the triad kept trying to jump into a solution without asking questions. So what's another question?
So I don't know if is okay to mention? Okay. Okay.
Who,
okay.
what, how, and sometimes where.
What is one thing that you can implement after our conversation today?
Excellent.
Okay.
Excellent. Very, very good. Grace, I haven't heard from you. I'd love to hear from you. Let me hear that pretty voice, Grace.
Talk about this, I think it was Carrie, right?
What was the question?
Yeah, Stephanie, could you mute, please, ma'am? Thank you.
Versus private coaching. And you know,
What was the question? Can you hear me? It's a bit noisy.
Oh,
There's
that noise is
coming.
that's your background noise. Okay, I'm sorry. I
Yes,
didn't realize that was your background noise. So the question is, you're listening for external leadership. You want to know that you've shown leadership in your session. What's a question you could ask the client that would show them that you've been listening as you've been leading them through the session?
Okay, so what one thing will you say that you have achieved from today's session? Is it to me or to them?
You're asking the question to them. Yep.
Okay, yeah. So is that okay? What one thing would you say? What one thing can you say is really standing out for you from today's session?
When you ask it like that, you're going to want to also speak to a result. So when you say what one thing stood out, when you phrase it like that, then you're going to say so that you can, or so that you will, because then you're going to want to attach a result to that. Make sense? That makes sense. Okay, good. Because that
Yeah. Sure. The noise is a little distracting. So, but yes, I got it.
Okay, good. Awesome. Thank you. I got not enough people on camera here. Anybody else want to try one? Christina?
What is your favorite thing? What is your favorite thing that you received today? What is that you can implement? Like, what is the one thing you liked the most today that you can implement right away?
That's a good start, right? Also, think about this. When you're asking them something like that, there's going to need to be a follow-up question, right? How could you effectively implement this, the one thing you just got them to say, to get immediate results, or to get the immediate results that you're looking for? Does that make sense, Christina? To everybody? Marco, yes.
I would rephrase it. Okay, so tell me, out of everything we discussed today, tell me at least one thing that impacted you the most, and you're going to follow up and implement it.
Yep, I like the way you said that. Yep.
Yeah, I like that better. Thank you.
Direct and to the point, and that forces the client to choose that one thing, go back to what you discussed and choose that one thing, and you told them you're going to implement it.
And Marco, do you give them a specific time frame? So like with my clients, I for accountability, it's like, by Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. That's something y'all want to be really careful about with your clients.
Yes.
Make it specific, not only to day and time, but make it specific to time zone. I learned that very quickly 4 or 5 years ago. A gentleman owed me something. He said 5 o'clock on Friday. So I said, okay. So around 7:30 on Friday night, it comes in. And he goes, oh, no, I meant Pacific time. I'm like, no, you didn't. You're in Miami, Florida. You didn't mean that, right? So I learned, I get my clients day, the time, and the time zone. Write it down. Oh, always giving us that accountability. Let's talk about listening for what's not being said, right? And we're going to be talking about secondary gain. So remember, if you were there 2 weeks ago, we talked about sensory acuity. You might want to write that down, sensory acuity. These are not only verbal, but nonverbal cues that you're looking for. It will help you see if you're really paying attention. So for example, I was on a Zoom like this with who I think is just the master at empowering questions, and was in some training a few weeks ago. And she asked a lady a question, are you willing to let that go right here, right now, completely and forever? And the lady went, yes. But her head did this. And only about 10 of us on the call caught it. That's a cue you want to be looking for, right? Anybody can say anything, but their behavior shows you who they are. So those are some things that we have to be aware of. And you can pick that up even over a Zoom. We were over a Zoom, but you want to be looking for that. Is their body language supporting what their words are saying? I think a word that Katie likes to use a lot is, are they in alignment? It would be one thing to say yes. It's a whole other thing to go yes, even though it was a very slight of the head. Stephanie, I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah, so I just wanted to ask, if you know that somebody is not speaking their full truth, based on their body language. Would you call them out on it, especially if it's in a group setting, or is that something you'd go one-on-one to talk to them about?
You could do both if it's in a group setting. But you wouldn't call them out and say, look, I know you're not telling me the truth or the whole truth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ask them what one other piece of information could they give you? Would you be open to going a little deeper on that subject? Would you be open is that is secret sauce phrase. I have seen that change conversations incredibly. Would you be open? I've only had one person ever say no. Because if someone says no, they're going to go, oh, I just told her I was closed-minded, right? If they're even the least little bit aware. So if you ask some empowering questions like that and you still get resistance, then yes, I would take it offline. For me, I've done this in a group setting before. I'm willing to ask those questions up front, especially if you've already set the stage that it's a safe zone to be open and everybody has that trust and assurity that things are confidential and safe. Is that helpful?
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
And Marco, you unmuted. Did you have something else you wanted to add? Or no?
People who come to me, they usually have the idea, or they get the idea that I'm a little bit of a psychic. So they don't hide anything from me because they know I can feel it anyways. And I always probe them. I get the feeling you're not telling me the whole story. Is there anything else you want to share? And, that allows them to, because really, the things they're not sharing are the things that bothering them the most.
Yes.
So you want to ask them, you want to make sure, say, look, I'm getting the feeling you're not really telling me everything. I know you told me a lot, but there's something else. Can't put my finger on it, but I can feel it. Perhaps I wasn't feeling it, but to tell them that, it allows them to give you everything. Establish trust first, of course. Once they trust you, then they give you everything. And once you see the little tear in their eye, then you know that they're opening up. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're going to talk about secondary gain. You might want to write this down. Secondary gain is defined as the advantage that occurs secondary to the stated or real challenge. I'll repeat that again. It's a little bit lengthy. It's defined as the advantage that occurs secondary to the stated or real challenge. So often the reason for secondary gains, they're deep and they're psychologically complex, right? So for example, if there's a belief in the subconscious mind that it's going to be hard, the subconscious mind will go out and find every available example to prove that that's true, even if there's infinite possibilities in front of them. Make sense? So if I said, just as an example, I'm not good enough, which we all know is a falsehood. We know that, right? Nod your heads with me. We know it's a falsehood, right? The client will see through the belief, through the process of deductive reasoning until that process is interrupted. So they're going to continue to believe that until you interrupt that process. They're holding on to secondary gain because the subconscious has decided there's a benefit. Maybe the benefit usually is to keep them safe. It's to keep them in their comfort zone. Secondary gain is about a subconscious benefit. I might be saying, I want to give this up. I don't want to believe this anymore, or I'm going to choose something differently. But if my subconscious is holding on to there's a benefit if I stay this way, and maybe it's just to keep me in my comfort zone or keep me safe, right? So a client could say, I really want to let this go, but that's really what's going on. And but is always a contradiction. It's just a contradiction when someone says but. They give you something, but, well, they're just going to contradict themselves. And I think the story I used that made sense a couple of weeks ago is this couple, they'd been married for a number of years. The wife felt like she was suffocating. The man was holding on to her so tight in every area of their life, she felt like she was suffocating. And they actually happened to go to this conference with Mirka, who I learned from in Empowering Questions. And when she's talking about this secondary gain and holding on, The second day they went through a process, and all of a sudden this man was in tears, absolutely in tears. And he recounted a story of when he was 8 years old. And he was at the park with his father. And he really, really wanted a balloon. Daddy, can I have a balloon? And his daddy said, you can't have a balloon. You'll just lose it. Let me get you one of these. I forgot what the other thing was. And the little boy's like, no, I want a balloon. And his father says, no. And they kept walking. And the little boy was insistent. Daddy, I want a balloon today. So finally, the father acquiesces. And the little boy gets his balloon. And they're walking through the park and they're having a good time. And something happens. And he accidentally lets go of the balloon. And the balloon goes off. He's 8 years old. His dad is screaming in his face, I told you, if it's something you really, really want, you have to hold on to it very tightly. Things that happen in our childhood, if we're not aware, impact things all the way into our adulthood, right? Part of what got him to that was a session she had taken him through on empowering questions and uncovering secondary gain. And what was the benefit of that secondary gain? And for him, he was transcribing it as love, but really it was out of fear. He was trying to hold on to her so tight because he believed from that old impressionable time that only if you hold on to something super tight can you actually have it. Does that make sense? So these questions to uncover the secondary gain can be incredibly powerful in your work with your clients. Incredibly powerful. All right. Everybody ready? Now, how can you get your clients to listen to themselves? I want you to write this down. What wouldn't happen if you didn't have blank? What wouldn't happen if you didn't have blank? This is a powerful exercise. You can use it with yourself. If we have time, we can go into a triad so you can practice this. What wouldn't happen? So Stephanie, would you be willing to play with me?
Sure.
Okay, awesome. So you told me earlier that you had a fear of success, that we hit it right on the head, right?
Yes.
Okay. So what wouldn't be happening if you didn't have a fear of success?
What wouldn't happen if I didn't have it? Okay, so if I didn't have a fear of success, I would probably make things happen more quickly.
Think of some things and some habits and some patterns. So for example, if I didn't have a fear of success, I wouldn't be holding myself back.
Mm-hmm.
If I didn't have a fear of success, I wouldn't be self-sabotaging.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So let's think along. I can give you a dozen more. I want you to come up with something. Think about patterns that you're doing that if you didn't have that fear of success, if you were just stepping out in full confidence, what wouldn't be happening?
I guess I wouldn't be having self-doubt, and that
Excellent.
I would have, I guess I would know that I'm worthy to do it.
Awesome. You wouldn't be having feelings of self-doubt. You wouldn't be having feelings of unworthiness. You wouldn't be giving up your power.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes we will make decisions that give up our power when we're operating from a fear of success, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be frustrated. I wouldn't be angry at the end of my day that I didn't accomplish. Boom, boom, boom.
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't care so much about what people think as well, I guess.
Awesome. Can you hear how this is getting you to listen to you?
Mm-hmm.
This is powerful. Powerful for you and powerful for your clients, but you must phrase it in that manner, even though it sounds awkward when you first write it down, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you first wrote it down, I said, that's kind of a weird statement, right?
Yeah. Yes. True.
Right.
True.
It
It's
is.
like you never ask yourself these things, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So what wouldn't be happening if I didn't have? And you can apply that in many, many areas. right?
Mhm.
And if you wouldn't be angry anymore, guess what? That means you also wouldn't be attached to fear, right? Fear is a subset of anger. Fear is a subset. We're working on being not attached. That was awesome. Who got a lot out of that example? That was a great example. Thank you, Stephanie. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Somebody else. Let's do another one. Baylin said, powerful example. Yeah, it is. What's something that you're challenged with that you're willing for all of us to help you come up with some things that you wouldn't be happening in your life if you didn't have that challenge? Okay, Marie, thank you for volunteering. And then Lacey, stick around. You'll be next.
I put my hand up slowly.
That's okay. One little step at a time.
I am challenged with multiple priorities, multiple things going on, and having a difficult time meeting each of my things with all the things I have going on.
So you're saying some things are falling through the cracks?
Yes.
Okay. So what wouldn't be happening if you were the master of managing yourself within your time?
Can you say that one more time?
What wouldn't be happening? We can even make it more specific. What wouldn't be happening with these priorities when you're the master of managing yourself within your time? What you're telling me is you're challenged to manage your behavior. We can't manage time. Time is time. Nobody can control it. It's behaviors. And remember, what can be measured can be managed. So are you measuring, and we'll get back to the thing, but are you measuring what you're doing? For example, I had a client and she liked to be spontaneous and this and that. And I asked her to schedule out for a week. I wanted to know everything she was doing in 30-minute increments. And she did this. Just feels like you're putting me in handcuffs. She went on and did a Facebook Live about, you won't believe what my business coach, blah, blah, blah. She did. True story. A week later, she comes back to meet with me. And you know what she said? Holy shit, I'm spending 9 hours creating content for Instagram for zero return. 9 hours a week for zero return. Now we can manage that. So that
I know that if I was managing the behavior during the time better, I would accomplish each of my tasks and with ease.
Okay. So if you didn't have this challenge, what wouldn't be happening? Things wouldn't be falling through.
Things wouldn't be falling through the cracks.
What else?
I would feel better about my accomplishments.
So what wouldn't you be doing? You wouldn't be beating yourself up for what you're not getting done.
Correct.
Right? You see the difference in the phrasing? Difference in the
Yes.
phrase? What else?
I would actually get more done.
But what wouldn't be happening?
I wouldn't be sacrificing some things for others.
Excellent. What else? What wouldn't be happening that's happening today?
That's all I can think of.
Are you beating yourself up?
Oh yes, I do beat myself up. And it's a subconscious beat up though. I don't show it on the outside.
But your body and your mind knows it. So if you didn't have this problem, you wouldn't be beating yourself up.
Correct.
Right? So you see how all these things come into play.
Mm-hmm.
And you could actually take that piece and go back to what we talked about earlier, where I shared and where Marco shared about priorities. I'm going to prioritize this within this time frame, and that's what I'm going to focus on. And I'm going to set up 3 bite-sized, digestible, doable things to move me closer to that goal, get them done, and then do the next one. Because when everything has the same priority, nothing has a priority.
Correct. Correct. And you know, you realize it after you've been doing it, because I have gotten really good at coaching others, but I'm realizing and hearing it more as I work with and hear you and your empowering questions and statements. I see and understand more of what I need to do for myself.
What you want to do or what you get to do.
Yes, I'm doing it. Today's the day.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. Lacey, you have your hand up?
My challenge is like Marie. It is mastering my time and managing my time and still feeling like I'm getting everything accomplished in all parts of my life, as a mom, as a wife, as a homemaker, as a business owner, as a Reiki master, all these different things. And I do understand what Marie says when I let things fall through the cracks that I don't even mean to. But I'm struggling with managing my time to the best of my ability and getting things accomplished, and not, sometimes it's like it'll get piled up and then I'll see the big pile and I get very overwhelmed and I'll try to pick one thing off the top, and that's not the priority that needs to go. So then I beat myself up because it's,
How is this pattern of behavior serving you?
it doesn't serve me at all.
It is serving you. Nobody does anything repetitively without getting a payoff.
Right.
So it's serving you in some manner. Could it be rooted in fear of success? If I've got all this shit going on all the time and I don't get it done, I'm not going to be successful.
Yeah.
Is it rooted in keeping you playing small?
Oh, it keeps me playing small completely. It takes away from my productive time.
Exactly. So there's an underlying fear about you stepping up and being who you're created to be in the world and being successful at it. There's an underlying fear there. The other thing is, when you use the word struggle, I'm just going to give a little coaching here real quick. Everybody write this down. For you, this is for your clients. This is powerful. Struggle is optional. Struggle is a habit. I choose to struggle because I'm addicted to my story. So Lacey, you don't have to say anything out loud, but what story are you choosing to stay addicted to that's keeping you in this struggle? Because we will continue to do something that's familiar, even if it's uncomfortable. That's it serving you in some way.
I choose to stay addicted to the story that there's not enough of me to go around. That if I don't get it done, there's nobody to help me. That if I don't make the dinner, it's not going to get made. If I don't do the things, it's not going to get done. So it in turn is me thinking that nobody can do the things. So I stay in this paradigm of choosing to struggle.
Yes. And that's also a challenge with control, right?
Oh, yeah.
Challenge with control. So what wouldn't be happening if you weren't being the only one who could do it all?
There wouldn't be so much stress. There would just be getting done.
What else? Just a second, Marco, just a quick second. Go ahead. Give me a couple more, Lacey.
I would be enrolling more clients into my program. I would be keeping.
No, not what. Let me jump in. It's what wouldn't be happening.
Oh, what wouldn't be happening? Sorry.
In other words, you wouldn't be having a lack of clients.
I wouldn't be having a lack of clients. I wouldn't be struggling to make sure all the homework's done and dinner's ready and baths are done and school clothes are out. I wouldn't be struggling to make sure that the animals are taken care of every day properly like I want them to be. I wouldn't be struggling to make it to the grocery store because we're out of milk. I wouldn't be struggling to content create and put boundaries up where the kids have quiet playtime.
So are you willing to give that up?
Yes.
Now that you're aware that that's the story you're choosing to stay addicted to, and you're aware of how it's serving you, you can now begin to make different choices. And remember, they're Pick your one goal for that day and do 3 bite-sized, digestible, doable things. And then I want to come back to that real quick. Marco, you had something to say?
This is very, very common. I find a lot of my clients choose to stay in that overload mode because that's how they can get attention. And if not from outside, from themselves. In other words, it's a way to show our partner, the people around us, do you see how much work I have to do? Do you see how much effort I'm putting into this? Do you see how many things I have to do? You see, I don't even get a minute for myself. And so, of course, the husband, the wife, okay, let me help you. It's one of the ways we tend to we think we're going to get attention or comfort. And we're addicted to that because think about it. If you had it all figured out and you have hours left over at the end of the day, your partner thinks you have it all under control. You don't need any help, hence you don't get any attention. And so that's one of the ways we subconsciously think we're going to get attention by keeping ourselves super busy and not able to catch up to everything. And we're really asking for help, but we're really asking for attention. One of the things we do.
Thank you. And remember this, we want to be applying this not only to our own lives, but listening for what our clients are going through and how we can help our clients when they're going through that, right? So one of the powerful things that can help you begin to move forward, Lacey and Stephanie and everybody that's looking to make changes, is when you write out every morning, unless you prefer to write them out at night, set your priority and write down 3 bite-sized, easily doable things. And here's the thing. It's super powerful and important. Hashtag TSW, this shit works, okay? This shit works, get ready, right? It's tying in the art of celebration, and it's the art of celebration using NLP. So example, for me, and it's something that you can do in public and that you can be consistent. I slept until 5 minutes before the alarm went off today. The first thing I said was, that was awesome. It's got to be verbal. It's got to have movement so it can be auditory. I use that consistently, and I celebrate the littlest things, because the more you celebrate, the more the universe is going to give you to celebrate. You're operating, as Marco would say, as I'm learning, at a higher frequency, right? You're in gratitude, right? The highest one. But it must be consistent and something that you can do in public. I have seen clients who quickly adopted this, and we set up micro, because those are your micro goals to get to your macros, to get to your final, right? And these are the business goals we were setting up. And all of a sudden they come in one day and they go, oh my God, we're already this far. We're already this far along, because you're celebrating all the little things. I have one client that does this and she goes, yes. Does it anywhere in public she wants to do it. Somebody looks at her funny, she says, I'm just celebrating, right? But getting into the habit and the art of celebration is amazing. The results that it can bring you very, very quickly. So I'm going to make this a piece of homework. I didn't have this as a piece of homework. I want you to private message me, each one of you individually, private message me and describe and tell me what your art of celebration is going to be. That's mine. That was awesome. I say it every time. I say it out loud and I snap. You can clap, you can stomp. It's got to have some noise, auditory, verbal, and kinesthetic. Now, has anybody thought of one real quick, just off the top of your head that you'd like to share? Nico, come on. You're on mute. You're on mute. You're on mute.
I already do it, so that's why it came so fast. I'm like, yes, baby. I'm like, but I put all in it, the whole power and everything.
That's awesome.
I have it on the back right now, so I don't know if you can hear me.
We did. Thank you so much. Yes, baby. Marco.
Little gift for everybody, whoever wants it. So if you personal message me, I will send you in my bedroom. First thing I see when I wake up in the morning, I have a little thing in the wall in front of me. It says, "It's a beautiful day." That's the first thing I see when I wake up in the morning. So if you guys want it, I will send it to you. It's a picture, a JPEG. You just print it out, buy a $1 frame from the dollar store, just put it in front of you. As soon as you open your eyes, that's the first thing you're going to see. It's a beautiful day.
Claim it. There you go.
Thank you.
Claim it from the very beginning. Did anybody else think of anything real quickly they'd like to share that's going to become their consistent art of celebration? Christina, can you think of one?
I constantly tell people blessings. I always, that's what it's either namaste or blessings. And you want actual action with it.
Something the universe wants you to be consistent, right? In your celebration. The more you celebrate, listen, we talk about all the time what we focus on expands. If you're focused on what's not working, you're going to get more of what's not working.
Yeah.
And so you're telling the universe, I want more of that. That was awesome.
Yeah, because I'm constantly telling them thank you.
But about you. These are about your celebrations.
Yeah, I'm always telling them thank you. Like
out loud?
Yeah. I tell them out loud and it just whatever. But yeah, I tell them out loud
what's
many times a day.
What, from an NLP perspective, to tie it all together, what's a movement that you would be comfortable doing out in public? Because you don't just celebrate behind closed doors, right? There's a lot of things that are, and as the world eventually opens up, you'll be out more.
I probably, besides the actual prayer,
do you do this every time?
No, not every time, but a lot.
Okay, are you comfortable with it?
Yeah.
Great. So jot yourself a note, jot yourself some little stickies, put it on your laptop, put it in your kitchen, put it in your bedroom so that you start getting consistent with it. Thank you or namaste, whatever you want to say, give it some movement. Give it some movement.
Okay, I will.
Thank you. Anybody else? Marie?
I make it a habit to arise each morning, place my feet on the ground, put my hands up in the air and go, okay, God, do this every day.
Awesome. I'm talking about the little, that's a great way to start your day. But here's the thing. We teach other people how to treat us. If we're not celebrating our own accomplishments, where is the expectation coming from that we want to hear it from other people? So you're having challenges with things slipping through the cracks. You're going to start rearranging your priorities. You're going to start managing yourself within your time. Every time you do it, you do your thing. Yes, out loud, whatever it is.
All right, I'm going to do it.
Great. All the little things. It's not, we don't celebrate just when we get to the end goal, right? Set your intention daily. You own your intention. Your goal is out there, but you own your intention and do it daily and just start being aware. I'd love for you guys to come back and tell me when you start doing this consistently on a daily basis, several times a day, the things that you begin to notice changing for you. Wow. What else is possible?
We are reaching our
I know. I just had one more question to wrap up, and then we can get our ahas and our feedbacks. What's the most powerful of all empowering questions? Someone unmute. I know you've heard me say it before. Come on, Christina. Do you know what it is? Katie? I think you'll guess.
What else is possible today?
What else is possible?
Someone put it in the chat for me. What else is possible today? Opens up doors. Can really change things and change lives. Who's got a puppy dog barking? Oh, Stephanie, you've been so entertaining today. Thank you, Stephanie. Go ahead. As long as you're unmuted, Stephanie, you want to give us an aha for today?
Well, I just wanted, my biggest aha is like how you just asked like 2 questions and it's just like you pierced into my soul. I'm like, oh my gosh, what just happened? So I guess being on the receiving side of it really
Mm.
just put that into perspective of how powerful this actually is. Because I think I told you before, for me, I'm such a rescuer. Like, I see you have a problem, so let me give you all of the solutions and you choose the best one for you. Like, that's just the way my mind's programmed. So I don't really ask a lot of questions, and it's really just showing me how you're convincing me how it's really important to do this by just that example. So thank you. I appreciate that.
You're quite welcome. Thank you for sharing. Christina, do you have an aha for today?
No, Stephanie like took the words right out of my mouth.
2 for 1. There we go. Marie? You're on mute, Marie.
Yeah. What a powerful session this has been. It has been good for me. Ahas today are just reframing my statements to myself that those internal leadership was just really, really good and helped me to do more for me. And I know that's my biggest challenge. I know I'm capable of doing it for others, but I need to do more work on myself. And this has been powerful and helpful.
Thank you. And you don't need to, you get to.
I get to.
There you go. There you go. Valen, you had your hand up?
Yes, I think just what you told me, don't take the word should or shouldn't out of our vocabulary. That was so powerful. And then use the words I get to, I choose to, I will. Those are just so powerful, like even not just for myself, but for everybody, your clients, you get them with that same mindset to where they take ownership and they say, I choose. Just like your example of the man that, okay, Carol, I choose. Get them to say that and to own their choosing. And I think that's just amazing. That's so powerful. Thank you.
Thank you. Idalma's put it in the chat. Aha number 1, to be in leadership position when we ask these empowering questions. And aha number 2, to be grateful and have a phrase with movement every day, right? Out loud and movement. And Marie says, I'm standing in the power of choice. Anybody else want to share something that you took away? Katie, please unmute yourself.
I've heard a lot, never accept, I don't know, but you gave me the positive follow. Well, if you didn't know, what would you say? I've never heard that before. That was magic.
Awesome.
Thank you.
You're quite welcome. Anybody else?
Nico.
Nico.
Yes, that's me. I've never heard the question the way you formulated it, and it just brought a light in my head, because what I'm talking about is what wouldn't happen if you didn't have that fear. I have a friend who's only talking about his fear. I have a fear that I'm gonna be left alone. I have a fear that I'm gonna disappoint people. My deepest fear is this and that. And the way I approach him sometimes is like putting myself in his position and trying to take things from there. It's like, you wouldn't, you shouldn't, all those words that we cannot when are not helpful. And when I heard that question, I was like, man, I know exactly how to approach me. I know exactly how. I mean, that was so powerful for me when you said that. I was like, oh, yes, that's the way. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? I'm going to turn it back up. Marco?
Carol, I have a client who I'm having a hard time with. He thinks he's in constant competition with his friends and family. But the competition is the only racer in the competition. I don't think anybody else cares. But for some reason, he thinks he's always in competition. In other words, he compares himself to them. How can I get him out of that mindset?
You could ask him, well, first off, I would tell him that comparison is always a losing game. You can always find somebody better. You can always find somebody less.
I already told him that. Yeah.
And what one thing would have to happen for you to love yourself completely and release the need to compare? In other words, I'm just guessing, I haven't spent time with your client, but there's a lack of self-worth.
Yeah.
Right? Absolutely. Yeah. And so it's rising up. He's not trying to prove anything to anybody else. He's trying to prove something to himself.
Okay.
So you have nothing to hide. You have nothing to defend. You have nothing to prove, and you have nothing to protect. He doesn't know that because he's coming from a place of insecurity and lack of self-worth. That would be my assumption. Someone who's always trying to compare. He doesn't like himself.
Right.
He's trying to prove to himself, well, I'm better than you, and I'm better than you, and I'm better than you. How could he show up every day in complete love of himself to release the need to compare?
But he's actually a lot better off than his friends in a lot of ways. But for some reason, he always finds somebody else who's ahead of him. I said, but he's not racing with you. He's not competing with you. Why are you competing with them? So
instead of asking him, why are you competing? Because why is really disempowering. Ask him, what one thing would happen if you gave up the competition with these other people?
Right.
And you could take that question that I gave you, what wouldn't happen if you didn't have this need to compare? And get him to start listening to his own language.
Right. Right.
Well, I wouldn't be putting myself down all the time. I wouldn't be stressed to think if I wouldn't be thinking I'm not good enough every day. What wouldn't happen if you didn't have this need to compare?
I wonder where that comes from. Of course, it has to be something with the childhood again.
Yes.
Yeah. It's 90.
Yeah.
I find 95% of issues are from our childhood. There's no question about that. Yeah.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Christina?
That goes back to our self-limiting beliefs, and that goes back to all the those subconscious issues that we acquire from the first 5 to 7 years of our childhood, and it's all subconscious.
Yeah, what's that number, Christina? We have like 60 or 80,000 impressions before the age of 7, something unbelievable, and we don't have the ability to say, I like that for me, or I don't like that for me. We just absorb it.
Yeah, it starts in utero while we're still in our mother's womb. So it's pretty strong.
Thank you. I know our time is up, Maria. I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you to everybody. And I was serious. Private message me and let me know what your art of celebration is going to be. I'd love to have it.
Oh, everyone, thank you so much. Let's give Carol a big, a lot of love in the chat, because what an absolutely wonderful class we had today. Carol, thank you. That really, really made all of us think, and not only think about how we're going to reframe what we say to our clients, but also how we reframe the things that we say to ourselves and help ourselves to move forward in a better and more positive way, So thank you for that. And thank you everyone for attending today. Do your homework. Don't forget to message Carol or message Marco for his picture. And we'll see you guys next time. Meet with your triad. Do your homework. Much love. Keep showing the world your awesomeness.
See you next week.
See you next week.